At this current time, given procurement, I am not allowed to discuss all of the BAA related questions, but I hope in the next day or two we'll be able to provide those on the Securing Water for Food website. Uh, in addition, we ask that you please hold all questions until the open Q&A session, which will be about 45 minutes into the presentation. I'm also joined by Sarah May Amde, the Program Manager for Chaotix, who will lead the second part of the discussion around the platform and do a demo for each of you on how the platform works. Sarah May, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning. So I work with I'm Sarah May Amde, and I work with Chaotix, and so I lead the program management when working closely with USAID to be able to define the best way to present their grand challenges for you. So as Q mentioned, after he continues with the introduction, then I'll be able to walk you through the ease of the use of the platform and going through the process of submitting an application and then editing it.
Thank you, Sarah May. So I wanted to go to slide 4, which is what are grand challenges for development. So the Grand Challenges program has existed for about 2.5 years. Securing Water for Food is the 5th grand challenge to date. Overall, the program has a $200 million pool and is based on partnerships with other governments, intergovernmental organizations, and NGOs and foundations, including the Gates Foundation, the UK British Development Aid, the Swedish International Development Agency, and others. The focus of the program is around transformative innovation and basically flipping the development paradigm on its head so that we use an open innovation approach to source and accelerate high potential solutions. So rather than each of these development agencies or organizations automatically soliciting through a grant process on what we think is best and what we want from you, we're changing that format and saying we understand the problems and we want new solutions to come from innovators, whether they be in the US or Europe or in Africa or in Asia or Southeast Asia or Latin America. And so we're hoping that through your efforts, through what you understand and have learned on the ground, you can bring us better solutions that are more sustainable and will have more long-term development impact. As part of that platform and paradigm, we seek to remove critical barriers to development through science and technology innovations. And by that we mean that we want to understand what are the critical pathways that are preventing us from solving development challenges. Once we identify those critical pathways, what innovations along those critical pathway chains can we implement which will have radical and transformational change. We attract partners that are committed to working with us to solving the problem. And those partners, as I said, can be at the large scale in funding and donor partners, or they can be at a smaller scale and they're helping us with outreach. They're helping us deal with the critical barriers that are not science and technology related. And they are also just getting the message out and working to help the rest of the world identify these huge problems and these huge barriers. In addition, we're working to mobilize diverse and non-traditional innovators from around the world. So we include NGOs, we include governments, we include businesses. We're also focused on including innovators from the science and technology spaces, which might be from research institutions or from universities. Students are also an important focus of ours because we believe that great ideas can come from anywhere and aren't relegated to the traditional spaces. And finally, we believe that our investments are catalysts to accelerate innovation. We believe that donor agencies can no longer just give money for money's sake. Rather, our money needs to be an investment that helps others succeed. And so we are just providing seed money that is a catalyst for others to join in the effort to lead to more successful, long-term, sustainable innovation. On slide 5, the Securing Water for Food Grand Challenge, as I said, is the 5th in the Grand Challenges for Development line. Our partner is the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, and they are focused with us on making more water available for the food value chain and also producing more food with less water. The program is a $25 million effort at this time, and this first round call for proposals, this first round is a $15 million round. What are the focus areas of securing water for food, and what is our main objectives? So first, we're trying to develop and advance prototypes that can promote economic growth and community stability. We're also trying to pilot and test solutions on the ground that will improve the water security, the food security, the health, and the economic well-being of local communities. Lastly, we are focused on launching point solution prizes that can apply the most innovative technology to overcome key business and technological barriers that may not necessarily be of a large scale, but maybe more focused efforts. And on slide 6, the focus areas of securing water for food all focus around finding new sources or more sustainable sources of water for the food value chain through innovation. And so the first is around salinity and saltwater intrusion. We really want to make sure that as this is a growing and increasing problem due to man-made uses of water, due to the effects of changes in climate and climatic variation, that we want more low-cost and low-energy solutions to deal with brackish water and saline aquifers, which are both used for ground drinking water, but more importantly for this program, for agriculture, whether that be for crops specifically, for animal husbandry, etc. And so we want to make sure that we have small community system focus and that it's the solutions and the innovations that come in for salinity are applicable to at least one part of the food value chain, but may be applicable to many. And by that we mean that it could be for seeds and for early agriculture and for actual irrigation or production, crop production. It could be for water that's used in manufacturing processes and co-processing facilities. And finally, it could also be used in the distribution system and actually when the products get to market. The second focus area is around water capture and storage. And as I mentioned earlier, as climate change is affecting communities differently, we're finding that there are becoming more water shortages in areas which aren't used to them. Monsoon seasons are shrinking, and so we need to find ways to use the water that we have and make it last and more sustainable during the times when we don't have water during those drought periods. Those innovations in this water capture and storage space we are hoping will be low cost, that they will be low energy, that once again they would be applicable to multiple parts of the food value chain, and that they would improve water sustainability such that a community which may only get rain for 3 months of the year would still have enough water because they were able to store it for later periods of drought in the year. And finally, there's water reuse and efficiency. And what we're focused on here is taking the water that we're already using, but using it more efficiently so that it can be used over a longer period of time and for more uses. And so here we're looking once again, low cost, low energy, because we want to make sure that it's applicable to as many different regions and adoptable in as many different areas as possible in the long-term scale view. And also we want to try to look at reducing water demand in all parts of the food value chain that I mentioned earlier, and or improving water use and productive use for crop yields. Now on slide 7 we focus on the key barriers to innovation. They can come from anywhere, and our objective is increasing private sector investment in water salinity, reuse, efficiency, capture, and storage technologies and business model innovations for their development and for their deployment. And through our barrier analyses, which we tried to take a global look at how water innovations in both the business model side and the technology side were being used, we found that there were a lack of business models appropriate for the developing world markets, that farmers were having a difficult time getting access to some of these newer and more efficient technologies, that the business models were not reaching down into the bottom of the pyramid and actually weren't really reaching many parts of the pyramid when it comes to water technologies innovations for agriculture in the developing world. And then secondly, The distribution systems for these water technologies were unevenly spread throughout the world. That some countries had a lot of access to these technologies, had a lot of different business models that were being applied, but many countries in the developing world did not have access to those things. And finally, it was difficult, and it is difficult, to find private investments to bring many of these solutions to scale. There are many solutions that have been made throughout India, throughout sub-Saharan Africa, throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, that are not reaching scale in the developing world, partially due to the lack of private investment to make them more sustainable and successful. And so some of the interventions that this program is focused on is to provide funding for technologies and business model innovations such that they can get over that middle hump in the valley of death for innovation. Second is to build relationships between existing distributors, water tech companies, and other entrepreneurs, and including ag entrepreneurs, to build new relationships through this Water Innovation Accelerator, this technical assistance facility that's mentioned in the BAA. Such that we can provide both business development and or marketing and or distribution support services to the innovators that are awarded funding from the program, should they choose to want to use those services. And finally, we want to incentivize private investment to scale solutions with risk mitigation and project development, such that our money not only is a catalyst, but it is also leveraged such that it is less risky for private investors to put their money on the table, because there's already another organization putting money on the table to support these innovations. The next slide talks about what is eligible for funding in this program. So we are not looking for a proof of concept or applications or proposals that are proof of concept. You must have done a pilot to even be considered for funding. A proof of concept is a great idea if it's research or R&D, but it's not moved very far. That is not something that is able to receive funding from Securing Water for Food. Rather, we're looking for prototypes that have been done in the developing country market, if possible. If not, they've been done in a developed or advanced country market, but they're already thinking about how to apply that in the developing country market. We're not limiting this to entrepreneurs or innovators that have a business focus. Non-governmental organizations, consortia that include research institutions can also apply. What we're trying to make clear is that looking for more sustainable and that would include financial sustainability. And so there needs to be a business model associated with the innovation, or it's the business model itself, that talks about how the water ag innovation is going to be sustainable over the long term once the Securing Water for funding ends, or funding from other donor partners ends. And so we expect to give funds out around 30% for that, and then 70% of our funding will go to larger and more and innovations that are further along the innovation pipeline at the scaling and commercial growth phase. In that case, we're looking at innovations that have already got a proven product line or a proven business model that they've been applied in multiple countries and will be able to be used potentially in this new sector. So it's an organization, either a business or an NGO, that has proven and demonstrated this viably in at least one market, and is looking potentially to scale up larger scale in that market, or to move to different markets for that innovation. And I just want to let everyone know that the presentation is on the Securing Water for Food website. In the event you're not able to stay online the entire time, so you'll be able to look at that presentation once you log off or at any point in the future. And so the last piece around the funding for the market and business product development versus the validation and commercialization and scaling for stage 1 versus stage 2 is the funding. These are up to amounts, and they're based on the life stage of the cycle that you're in. So if you're a stage 1 innovator, you've got a pilot that you've proven and demonstrated, and you want to try to get a larger scale pilot to lead to more implementation and success, you can get $100,000 of maximum initial support and up to $500,000 of total future financial support, provided that you meet the annual milestones, and also provided that you set and that we agree to on both the financial and the technical side. At the stage 2 level, the maximum initial financial support is $500,000, and the maximum future financial support is $3 million. Now, it must be, I want to make very clear that not all innovators that win Securing Water for Food funding will make it to that future financial support. It will depend upon the innovator's ability to meet all financial and mutually agreed upon financial and technical milestones, such that we do not envision that of the 30 to 40 innovators, there are going to be 30 to 40 at the end that have met all the milestones, just given market conditions and the standards of innovation. That being said, we are prepared to support all innovators that make it to the awardee stage through the process with acceleration support services should they choose to use them. And so with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Sarah May, such that she can deal with the platform. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cook. So just to get it here, so as you mentioned, you have the ability to view, let me just go back here, to the Securing Water for Food website. And as you view all the information that's listed there, you do have the ability to click right here to apply for an application on the platform. In doing so, it'll prompt the Securing Water for Food Grand Challenge website, and this is where you're able to register and log in for this application. For the purposes of today's demo, we're going to be using a demonstration site, so we won't be actually logging into the production site, but it's an exact replica of what you would actually facilitate and go through. So as you visit the website and you register, you enter your email and you'll click the registration button, you'll receive an activation email. Upon the activation email, you will have the ability to log in. And in doing so, you'll be able to click here into the login button and enter your credentials. Again, for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll be using a test account that will be able to walk us through the same process that you would go through during the Securing Water for Food Grand Challenge. So one of the first things that you'll notice as you log in is that you'll be prompted to complete your profile. This will be the demographic information about your organization. We'd like to reiterate that an organization can submit more than one application for any relevant ideas that they have to submit for the Grand Challenge. And so this just gives us that high-level information that we can submit in here. So for the purposes of today's, we're going to call this our Securing Water for Food organization. Again, what it will do next is just prompt you for the full address and the contact info of this applicant organization. So we'll say we're at 1 City Street. And for simplicity's sake, we'll just pick a Canadian city. So here it'll prompt us for the organizational main phone number and the type of organization. So please note, though, that you will be required to enter only alphanumerics for this, and that the application is really responsive to ensure that it guides you through the process accurately. We'll just continue on here with the type of organization, and for the purposes for today, I'm going to say that we're a nonprofit and that the size of our lead organization has 0 to 10 people. As well, It'll ask us for the main point of contact, and this will be someone who's potentially different than the actual project manager of the application, but it's just the person that, you know, is the main point for all communications within the platform. So we're going to call this the lead organizer. And again, for email validation, just put in your email address. So. Again, it'll ask for the phone number of that particular person. And as Dr. Koo mentioned during the initial slides, it'll ask for you to specify the technical focus area. Now, as an organization, you may have multiple technical focus areas, and then each application may focus on one particular area. So for the purpose of today's demo, I will select all three. At this point, you'll be able to select your countries or implementation. So you have the list of available countries that are eligible for the program, and I will just list, I'm just going to select a couple randomly here. And then finally, the last question asks about joining the community. And what this is that the Securing Water for Food program gives you the ability to communicate with other participants who have opted in to be able to share ideas. Now, this is something that is entirely optional. It's available for all participants, and these conversations are not monitored. So by checking this checkbox, you do agree to sharing your information. And what information gets shared is the name of your organization, your technical focus areas, and your countries of implementation. Again, for the purposes of today's demo, we will select that, and we'll click Finish. So what we have here is that there was a notification that there was a field that we entered in incorrectly. You will get a notification window, and that says here that there was an issue with saving your field. So you have the ability to see that. And what it has is it's the main phone number. Again, the platform will be working with you to ensure that you're entering information in the same way that you should, and it will have clear and concise details for ensuring that you've met all requirements. So with this particular field and all of your phone numbers, that it requires that you only have digits. So the dashes would need to be removed, only numerical digits. And you will see that that is the only field that is highlighted, is the one with the error. And then you will be able to continue and click Finish. And then it'll take you to your applicant dashboard. So with this dashboard, this is your main login site that you will see every time that you access the platform. What it does is it gives you a bunch of information here. So you have the ability, it'll tell you the number of days that are left in this particular program. Again, this is a test site, so this is not actually representative of the current site. I believe that you have an additional couple of days for this window. It also indicates the description of the field, description of the phase, and it lets you know what is required of you, as well as you're able to see the life cycle of the program. With this, we see here that we have no applications and that we have the ability to start a new application. Other points of interest on this dashboard is that you always have the ability to come back to it at any given point, and we also have the organizations here. In clicking the organizations, this corresponds to that profile question we mentioned about joining the community. And what we have is, again, from the text, because this is a demonstration platform only, we have the other organizations that have opted into this and their technical focus areas that they've selected and their countries of implementation. This gives you the ability to message this particular organization. And in sending a message, you will be prompted with a disclaimer, which is really something that we really want to emphasize, and that these messages are entirely private and only within the applicants. These are not monitored, and and that they're opt-in only. So you don't have to feel that you're compelled to either send a message and/or reply. As we click back to your dashboard, you have the ability to always access your community moderator support and any supplementary documents that may be required. So as Dr. Koo had mentioned, the BAA will be there, as well as the frequently asked questions from their RFI process. And beginning with this application, you'll do is you'll click on Start a New Application, and it begins the process. So initially, it asks you to select an application title. So again, for the purposes of this, we'll call this the Securing Water for Food New Project. So, and this is the first page of the application. So it'll denote the page that you are currently at, and you'll always have a progress bar to let you know the number of pages that you have still to complete, so you're able to work through this. Initially, this is to let you know that the first pages are required for data reporting, but they do not impact the evaluation of this application. So the first thing that we have is the project manager, and this will be the main point of contact for this particular application. Again, it could be the same person who is registered as the user, or it could be someone different. It gives you that option. So in the event that it is not the main point of contact, it will provide the first name, last name, email address, phone number for you to provide that information. For today's demonstration, we will select that it is the same main point of contact. Again, here we ask the technical focus area. So as we mentioned, some organizations may have different and various technical focus areas, but the particular application that they're submitting for is focused on one, so one or more. I'll rephrase. So for this application, I will select that we're working with salinity. And then again, the countries of implementation for this particular application. And I'm going to, it's one of the ones that we previously did. As Dr. Koo mentioned, there's 2 stages of funding that are being required to be asked for during the application process, and you have the ability to select them here. And then again, the type of innovation. Another demographic question that we do have that finalizes the first page here is the percentage of women working on the team for this innovation, and you're able just to enter whichever corresponding field works, and you just click next page. Provided there's no errors, you will continue on to the second page here. Again, you'll notice the progress bar has changed to define that you've completed the first page of the 5 that we have. Again, these are just other demographic pages, questions that we have that initiate with, have you applied for funding before in the past, or if you've applied for funding with one of the other USAID partners, the Swedish International Development Corporation Agency, and if you have current applications pending, or if you've received funding in the last 5 years. And then the last question on this particular page is, where did you get your information about this? So I am going to say that we picked it from the USAID website, and why did you apply to this particular grant challenge? And click next page. So again, the progress bar is updated to indicate that we have 2 pages completed, and at this point, I wanted to be able to share with you that in the event that you need to take a break in between working on the pages or whatnot, you have the ability at any given point, just hide this, to click Save Draft. And what this does, it will save a copy of the information. It will notify you that your data has been auto-saved, and it will save the current position where you are on this page. So if you were working through and you have some of the questions answered and you're not quite complete in order to progress to the next page, you do have the ability to do so and come back at a later time as well. This also works with timeout sessions. In the event that you walk away from your computer or laptop for a while and unable to get back before your session times out, it will automatically save this information for you. So to demonstrate that, I will show you. I will just enter in one question here. And then I will click Save Draft. So as you click back, so if you log back in you would be viewing your dashboard. You would see on your dashboard that you have your web application that's currently listed on your profile, and you'll be able to continue your application. In clicking on Continue Application, it takes you back to this page, and it notifies you that your saved data has been reloaded into the form. And this is one of the features of the application to be able to help you through this process. So to work through the rest of this, we're just going to continue on with this information. I'm just going to complete just entering the same information here just so that we make the requirements. As you will note at the top of each page, it will notify you if there was any character restrictions, and it lets you know here that each text box on this page has a character minimum of 250 and a character maximum of 3,500. So just to show the error messaging that shows up here, I will ensure that at least one question here does not make that requirement. Another thing you will notice on this initial page is that you will have a checkbox here. And what this does is we understand that there are times where this information that is provided into this application should not be disclosed outside of the U.S. government or any entity that's associated with the Securing Water for Food Grand Challenge, that it shouldn't be duplicated, used, or disclosed in any part. So this gives you the ability to check this box and ensure that that is adhered to. You must note, so if you have provided commercially sensitive information in a specific text box, you must add, and we have it here for you to just copy and paste, that you would use or disclosure of data contained in this text box is subject to the restrictions on the title page of this application, and that notifies the team to adhere to this process. So as we go to click next page, we'll be able to continue on with this. As well, it indicates again that the text box on this page does have the same character minimum. Just going to keep that one so that it does. I think I actually made the last character minimum the last one. And as you work through the questions, it does tell you the best way to complete this, and it tells you, to tailor all your questions in the section to the particular countries that you're particularly working to propose your work. Again, as I mentioned before, you can click click Save Draft, and your data will be auto-saved, and you can continue on. As we go to click Next Page, it indicates to me that I have not made one of the requirements on this page. So again, the error messaging will always show up here in this bubble window that notifies me that there was a problem with the application and to see the errors. And the error that we have will highlight the question and the text box and the text that is in question, and it tells you descriptively what needs to be done. So here it tells us that our field must be between the 250 and 3,500 character limitations. So I will just update the information there, and we will click on next page. Again, as the progress bar is completed, we can see that we're on the last page of the application, on page 405. And again, I will just simply input all the information here so that we can complete this process. At this point, you have the ability to save a draft and come back to it. Or you can click next page and you can look at the review for your application submission. Please note that even if you do submit an application, you do have the ability to go back and revise it up until the end of the phase date that is listed on the dashboard. So you have the ability to at least submit to that you have your application in, and then if you feel that you want to modify a question, you have the ability to do so. On this page specifically, it notifies you that this is the application preview, and then when you're ready, you just click Submit Application. You will have the ability at this point to download the copy of your application as a PDF, as well as modify all of the individual pages. So you have the ability to edit your project title and all of the page information that you so desire. So we're going to, for the purposes of this demonstration, just modify this page too. So we've decided that we realize that we've received funding in the last 5 years, and we're able to say it was intergovernment, and the name of the organization was, we're just going to call it the Securing Water for Food Help Fund. And then how much funding, and then there's additional questions with this that will pop up as a result, and it's how much funding have you received from this innovation, and then we'll say if there's any revenue that's been generated. So in doing so, at the bottom of the page, because we're working towards submitting it, you will have the ability to submit this. When you do so, it takes you back to the application preview page where we have started so that you're able to continue on. So you can keep reviewing additional pages. So after reviewing all of the content on the page, whether going through the website or downloading the PDF, you can state that you are ready to submit, and then do so, click the Submit Application button here. In doing so, you will be prompted if you want to submit this application. Again, because we are working through a demonstration site, the URL here that would enter, you would say securing water for food. Once that has been done, you will notice that the preview pane and notification has changed, and that you are notified in the corner here that the application has submitted successfully. At this point, you have the ability to, you can log out or you can continue on to your dashboard. As mentioned, there's some organizations that may have multiple applications, and you have the ability to start a new application and continue through the process. As we can see, because we've already submitted one application, we have the details of our application listed here. We see it shows us that there is 5 of 5 pages completed, and that the submitted status shows today's date and a timestamp. We have the ability, again, as I mentioned, to go back into this application and edit it if you so desire. And to do so, you would click on View Application, and again, you would see the information as you saw when you submitted the application. Similar to when we were in the application preview, you can select any page that you would like to edit and decide that you want to, let's put here, add some additional text. In doing so, again, you click Submit, and now it has resubmitted your application. What it'll also notify you is the timestamp here will have changed to reflect the time that you have updated your submission, and clicking back on My Dashboard, you would see that that timestamp here has also changed as well, just verifying for you that you have resubmitted your application. So again, the ability to download as a PDF occurs here, and then again, you have the ability to complete any additional applications if you so desire. Ku, I leave this to you as if there's anything else particularly that we wanted to cover, because we went through the entire process there. Dr. Ku, are you still on mute?
Thank you, Sarah May. As we had noted before, please make sure to submit your questions on securingwaterforfood@gmail.com. And we have a few now, so I want to go through a few of these. So far, they've all been related to the BAA and not to the platform. So I'll try to address these in the order I received them. Now, 3 things I want to make very clear to all webinar attendees and those that may be listening to this subsequently. First, that concept notes will not, I repeat, will not be accepted through the Gmail account. So if you send a question, I'll try to review it and try to discuss it in this webinar. However, all applicants must submit their concept note through the applicant dashboard through the concept note intake process that Sarah May just went through. If you submit a concept note through securingwaterforfood@gmail.com, it will not be read and it will not be reviewed. And so there may have been a few of you who have submitted a concept note either today or in the recent past, in the last month or two, but those concept notes will not be reviewed by Securing Water for Food and will not be eligible for funding. To be eligible, to have your application eligible for funding, you must submit your application through the concept note intake through Securing Water for Food that we just went over. Now to a few questions regarding proposals and what is eligible for funding, what kind of information is out there. The first question was, can we submit one proposal for multiple innovations, or should we submit separate proposals for separate innovations? The answer to that question is that you should submit separate proposals for separate innovations, because though your organization may have multiple innovations that you want to put forward for this, we will be looking at them on an innovation by innovation basis, and we assume that there would be a different project manager for each of those innovations. So please submit them with separate proposals for separate innovations with a different program manager or a principal investigator for each. The second question is, do the innovations have to be technical innovations that are produced by businesses, or can they also deal with innovations produced by the communities themselves? The answer to that is we are agnostic with regard to where the innovations come from, as long as they are not from individuals or from governments. So research institutions, government, non-governmental organizations, startups, businesses, consortia of the above can submit applications. And if the application is from a community, the only requirement is that there be an organization representing that community for the application, so that it would not be an individual from that community, but it was an organization from that community. So I would reiterate that individuals and governments may not submit applications to Securing Water for Food. They will not be eligible for funding. The second part is that are decision support models a technology that is eligible for funding, or is the grand challenge only considering hardware technologies? Securing Water for Food will consider any innovation, technology, or business model that makes more water available for the food value chain or produces more food with less water. We are once again agnostic on the types of technologies, whether they be decision support models, whether they be specific hardware, or whether it is a business model innovation. And so hopefully that provides a little more clarity. In addition, an important confirmation that I need to make is that the platform doesn't allow for formatting from your Word document to come through clearly into the platform. And so please make sure when you submit your application that, before you submit your application, that the information is presented in a way that you want the reviewer to see it, that will be reviewing your app, or reviewers to see that will be reviewing your application. Second, that the platform doesn't allow the pasting of tables, and so if you put a table in there, it may mess up your formatting, and so just be aware of that, such that if you try to directly copy and paste in a table and it doesn't work, that is because we are accepting text at this stage of the concept note stage of the application. After you click submit, can you reopen and edit your application as long as the deadline has not passed? Yes, you can. So clicking submit means that we have it in our system that this is the application that you want us to review. However, up until the application deadline, which is 5 p.m. on January 31st, you are able to go in and modify and change that application. Our system will only put it in as final on January 31st at 5 p.m. So whatever information you have in the submitted application at that point in time will be the information that we review from you. Now, I've got a procurement-related question around matching funds that I will not be able to answer, and so apologies for that. Please note that there will be an amendment to the BAA release before the end of this week, which will more clearly clarify questions related to matching funds and the matching funds requirements. So at this time, I am not able to answer that. And the next question that's come in is, how detrimental is it if the submittal of the concept note in the developing country partner instead of a developing country partner? So to clarify, I think the questioner is asking, does it make a difference to securing water for food if the organization submitting the application is from a developed country, as in the U.S., Europe, and some parts of Asia and Latin America, rather than a developing country partner? We are agnostic on where the application comes from. However, every application for securing water for food that is implemented in a developing country must have a local partner unless it is an application submitted by a local organization. So if the application does not have a clear local partner in the country of implementation, it will not be as evaluated as highly as those that have a local partner. In addition, every application for securing water for food must specifically, in every part of the application, describe the local conditions. So if we're asking a question about how is the innovation going to be used by consumers, we're assuming that you are going to answer that question with relation to local demand and consumers, which is a key and an important part of the evaluation process and a part of the criteria. The second question is, how detrimental is it if the innovation is not established in the developing world, but there is interest? And so that is not detrimental. However, as I just noted, local demand, local market conditions are most important, and those are the things that you must have clear evidence and information to back up and support your claims. If it is not clear, the backup evidence and the supporting information that you put in your application, it will make it very difficult for the reviewer to evaluate the quality of the application and give it a high score in that area. The next question are, what are the selection criteria securing water for food will use to evaluate concept notes? Now, as I noted before, there will be a modification, a broad agency announcement amendment that will be released by the end of the week. In that amendment, there will be specific information on the evaluation criteria that will be used to evaluate the concept notes. At this time, until the procurement goes out, I cannot discuss those issues, but please know that the questions that you're answering, the evaluation criteria, are directly related to those questions. And if you have not given a complete answer to the question, you will not be evaluated, and the score on your application will be lower than those applications which have given a full and complete answer to the questions with a specific description of how it will be described or used or implemented in the developing country that is put on the application. So the next question is it possible for more persons to work on one application, or should they share the username and password to do this? That is up to your organization. If within your organization you would like to have multiple people working on one application, we at Securing Water for Food and through the platform are not responsible for that, and so we cannot really give an answer for your organization around that question. But if your organization so chooses to have multiple people working on one application, they would need to do it through that same and single username and password that you use to log in and register. The next one is that we're looking for business model innovations with a well-known technology in the West, drip irrigation at a commercial scale. However, we are based in Africa and have not yet begun operations. Can we pilot stage 1 commercial drip irrigation in Africa, though it is not verified in a pilot by our company? So the question goes to whether or not the people who are submitting the application have experience with the pilot. And the answer, you can definitely submit an application. It would definitely be reviewed. However, we are looking for innovations that have a proven pilot, and so we're expecting either the local organization or the organizations that are partnering with them to have experience in the local country and also have experience with the pilot. So if it is a something that the organization has not experienced before, that is at the concept note stage. That is a proof of concept rather than a prototype or pilot, because you've not demonstrated either in your own organization or in the local organization in the developing country that you have experience with this. So you can submit an application, and if all other parts of the application are great, that's a good thing. However, that organization would not score highly on the pilot question, given that the pilot needed to be done and understood by the people submitting the application. Okay, the next question is the full proposal format, character limits, etc. available as a PDF format sample somewhere. The call document doesn't mention these. And so the answer to that is in the modification that will be released before the end of the week to the BAA, there is that language is included in that documentation. So it tells you that the minimum of the 250 characters and then the maximum limit. That is specifically included in the BA. However, if you're working on an application, the platform itself will tell you if you have either not met the minimum character limit or if you've gone over. And so, as Sarah May demonstrated, the platform will mark in red when you try to submit an application or submit a page of an application if that was not applicable. A related question, does the character count in the boxes include spaces or not? And it does include spaces, but with the maximum character limit being as it is, we expect that you should be able to specifically, concretely, and concisely describe within that maximum character limit, including spaces, all information that you need to give us for each of those questions. And so as Sarah May is showing on the webinar screen now, the field must be between 250 and 3,500 characters long. And so if you put in too little information, this will come up. If you put in too much information that you go over the character maximum, that will also come up. So another question that has come in is that if the organization submitting the application represents a consortium, do they need to identify just the names of the partner companies or some specific information about them? If so, what is that specific info? And so this is, once again, mostly a procurement-related question. We would prefer that you submit all of the information you think is necessary for us to evaluate the application. So if you think that it is necessary to submit information around beyond the names of the organizations, because that you think would give us a better understanding of what the application's partnership is and the experience of the partners, then you should give us that information. This information that you're requesting will be more specifically listed in the BAA amendment, and so I would ask that any organization specifically read each of the evaluation criteria, including that around partnership and local partners that will be released in the BAA amendment. The next question is, does having a local field presence with own staff in the field count as a local partner for a Western NGO? And so I would refer to my previous comment on certain questions being procurement related that I cannot answer at this time, and so I would request that you review the BAA amendment when it comes out to more specifically answer that question. The next question that has come in is, can the local partner and the project manager be a government organization, such as a water treatment company, but the application is submitted by a private company that has the innovation? The answer is no. Local governments or any governmental organization outside of research institutions that will be more clearly spelled out and specified in the BAA modification. But overall, local governments and state governments and national governments are not eligible for funding from Securing Water for Food. If the application is submitted by a private company, then the private company would also have to manage the project. If there is a local government that is managing the project would be considered a local government run project, and therefore it would not be eligible for funding. A related question, can government be part of the partnership proposing the innovation even if the technology has not been developed by government authorities? And the answer to that is if the government is a minor partner in the consortia, for example, just providing technical advice, such as a research institution would do, but the implementing partner, the organization that is actually doing and working on the innovation and getting it out into the field to get it to scale is doing the primary piece of the work, that is okay. However, if the government is a major partner in the innovation and is working on it, they cannot receive funding from Securing Water for Food. Now the next question is, must equipment technology for this project be procured from the United States and or a developing country, or can it be procured from other developed countries as well? And so I'm not very clear on the question, and so therefore I would just refer you back to the BAA as currently written, but more specifically to the BAA modifications around equipment, because that is listed in one of the appendices in the BAA. So I would ask that you look back to that. Now, next question is more related to the technical focus areas. When we talk about water capture and storage, can snow or fog harvesting be part of it? The answer is yes. Any sort of precipitation that can be captured and stored for long-term use for agriculture is eligible for funding from the program. However, I would like to make it clear that that description is up to the innovator, to the applicant, to describe to us. If it is unclear from the application what specifically is being put forward, we will not be able to score the application highly, though we will definitely review it. So the next question is, our organization is working with a number of companies worldwide and will present their solution under a consortium. Each is presenting a certain scope, and the complete integration reaches the goals of the program. Some of those technologies are not exposed to all parties as their own technology. Is it enough to explain the process but keep their know-how to themselves, as there are NDAs between all parties, or must you describe all details presented and used by the U.S. government in the case of the award? And so the explanation that we would give here is that all parties involved need to come up with their own agreement internally. Securing Water for Food is not responsible, nor can be held liable for any conversations between parties themselves, and we would ask that the parties determine that. For the purposes of the application, if there are any parties that are working on the innovation, there needs to be a description of how that party is involved and why their involvement is important. And we're talking about at the concept note stage here. Any further information requested around this question, however, I would ask you to refer to the BAA modification and amendments. So the next question was, are we entitled to apply for both stages of funding? If the applicant so chooses, they would need to denote in the application whether they are applying for stage 1 funding or for stage 2 funding. The application will then be reviewed with that group of proposals that are either under stage 1 or stage 2. And so the answer to the question, it is up to you to determine which stage that you are applying to. We will review the application at whatever stage you apply to. As the platform is constructed, you must choose one or the other. Now, the next question is, does Securing Water for Food support encourage multinational proposals or prefer national proposals? That is separate applications for each country. We do allow applicants to, as noted by Sarah May in the platform, to put in multiple countries of implementation into one application. And so, however, when that is put into an application, there needs to be a description of how the innovation is going to be implemented and affect each of the countries of implementation, specifically in the proposal. And so if the proposal is for multiple countries, but it doesn't specifically mention those countries, that proposal would not be evaluated as highly as one which talked about multiple countries and specifically described how the innovation was going to affect or apply to each country. The next question is, will funding be equally divided for stage 1 innovations between salinity, reuse, and storage? Is it possible for all funding to only go to one category, or will it be allocated equally across the three? The answer to that question is that the founding partners will review and determine, based upon the applications we receive, the distribution of funds between the three concept note areas. We expect in general that they would be somewhat equal. However, if we receive more applications, more high quality applications that we think are eligible for funding in one of the focus areas versus the other, the applications themselves will make that determination for us. The next question, is there a maximum number of partners that can form a consortium and submit a proposal together? We place no maximum on the number of partners in a consortium. That is up to the individuals within that organization or that set of organizations to determine for themselves. And at the concept note stage, do we need to provide a budget for the innovation? I would refer you to the specific questions listed in the broad agency announcement, and then the evaluation criteria that will be released in the modification to the broad agency announcement around what is required in the concept note stage. So we are only requiring what we request specifically in the platform as the concept note questions at the concept note stage. A specific budget will definitely be required at the full proposal stage, but there is specific information on the cost of the innovation in the business model that is requested and required in the concept note stage. So I would refer you to those questions and to make sure you specifically and completely answer each of those questions. We are in the process of registering our company. If it is not registered yet, but will be registered before any funds will be dispersed, is this fine? Securing Water for Food and USAID will review every application in its entirety, and we will, based on the information we have at the time, we'll determine whether or not we think an organization is eligible to continue in the process or not eligible to continue to the concept note through the concept note stage. At each stage of the process, we will do a further determination once we receive more information from each of the applicants, and we will review at each stage the registration process. If we find that an organization is not officially registered in any form or capacity, more than likely will not be able to review that application. Could a company begin at stage 1 and move to stage 2 within the BAA timeframe? The answer to that question is that a company can apply for stage 1 or stage 2 funding and will be awarded funding based on whichever area that they started in. We will not be able to move a company from stage 1 to stage 2 funding based on the awards provided. However, what we would be able to do is provide increased acceleration support should the company or organization want increased support that would be more tailored and modified to them moving from that pilot and market-focused development stage to that later scaling and commercialization phase. Would you consider a university government organization? Can a university receive funding? Universities may receive funding. For the purposes of this broad agency announcement, we are not considering universities or research institutions related to government to be governmental organizations. The BAA modification that will be released later this week will make that more clear. The dashboard shows 2 eligibility stages after the concept note submission stage. Can you describe what they are? Yes. So we will, through 2 specific processes, review eligibility. And the platform itself is designed to help with the eligibility question, such that applications from ineligible countries, those countries that are not listed in the implementation list, In addition, we specifically request information about your organization, whether it's a business, an NGO, etc., such that we can make that determination. During eligibility phase 1, there will be a first level review that the organization, that the applicant is an organization, that it is not an individual and it is not a government. In addition, we will review to make sure that the application is in English, because only applications in English are eligible for funding. Um, the second eligibility review will be done by a different set of reviewers to review those same 2 pieces of information, but just to make sure we have an extra set of eyes so that we have a very thorough and complete review of all applications. If a local partner is a government-run university or research center, are they eligible to be the project manager? And as I just noted, and as will be more clearly detailed in the modified BAA, universities and research organizations that are government supported are eligible for funding. And so, yes, they could therefore be the project manager. At this point, we have exhausted the questions. We will provide another minute or two for those of you that might be interested in submitting questions. I remind everyone to regularly check the website, fedbizops.gov, www.fbo.gov, and grants.gov for the updates and the Q&A. In addition, on securingwaterforfood.org, we will post the modified amendment to the BAA, and we will post the answers to the Q&A. In addition, in the application platform itself, we will post the amendment to the BAA as well as the question and answers for the BAA. One final reminder, as we have continue to receive concept notes via the Gmail account. Concept notes submitted via the Gmail account will not, I repeat, will not be reviewed. So if you submit a concept note to the Gmail account, it will go into a folder which no one will read. You need to submit your concept notes via the application platform in the text boxes that we have provided. Failure to do so will mean that your application will not be reviewed by Securing Water for Food. And with that, Sarah May, I am done answering questions. Are there any other questions that have come through on your end?
Our team has been forwarding them as also as well to the email address so that you've been able to address them as we've been going through.
Okay. So I would like to thank everyone for their participation in the Securing Water for Food